Brandon with Town Square Brewing. We are located on the south side of Edmonton. Established in 2017. We were one of the front runners of the big boom that we've enjoyed and experienced over the last few years. We got into the industry as a passion project, looking to kind of be a little bit more creative, adventurous. We consist of 3 different families, so 6 shareholders altogether, including myself, co-founders. Originally started as a pizzeria with a craft beer emphasis. When we started the business plan, we were actually looking at bringing up another franchise from the States that is a pizzeria that had supported a lot of local craft breweries. And so that really inspired us, especially at that point in time, around the 2015, 2016, we started to see the craft beer trend here, starting to grow. A lot of things were starting to open up, give us the freedom to be able to do what we wanted to do. And the supporting local was expanding, and a lot of people in Edmonton enjoyed a lot of artisan food. So we figured, hey, it'd be really interesting to kind of bring this flair, especially to the south side of Edmonton, where you typically would see that kind of niche market on White Ave or downtown. We wanted to bring it to the south side to be a little selfish, so like that's where we live, and we were hoping that we can kind of create that culture around it. So in the process of getting the franchise up from the US, we hit a lot of red flags, a lot of roadblocks. Started to drag things out a lot, and so we decided, we're going to scrap the partnership with these guys, and we're pretty much going to rip off their model and do our own pizzeria with our craft beer emphasis. So that's where the initial kind of dreaming of what we can do with the space came into the place. As we started doing our business plan, started talking to a lot of local breweries that were here, Alley Cat, and then up and comers, which were Situation and Blind Enthusiasm. So started networking with those guys, getting feedback and picking their brain, which was surprisingly very open conversations. They embraced the idea of having not competitors, but partners in the industry to help grow the industry. And so they shared a lot of information where other industries wouldn't do that. They would keep it closed book, kind of stifle your own competitor, but they opened everything up, and it was well embraced. And so in having those conversations with those key individuals, they kind of gave me a slap upside the head and quickly made me realize that if we were going to open up a little nano brewery at that time, and I had the idea that I was a home brewer, so I was like, hey, it'd be kind of fun if we support all the local breweries, and then I have one draft line, and that one draft line I could brew and then put it on and kind of get feedback and then kind of grow from there. And talking to these guys, they basically told me straight up that you're going to be a slave to that brew house, and you're not going to be moving enough liquid, and you're going to want to scale that up, especially depending on what your long-term plan is. It's going to hold you back. So at that point, we started running numbers, figuring out what we can do with our bootstraps and what we can make happen. So from there, the idea was to be able to have a full-time brewer that would be on site. I'd still be able to have some influence there, but manage the business. And so the system that we have today is where we got to be able to kind of break those numbers and allow us to be able to brew and have fun and do the adventurous things that we do. So then we opened up, and so we bought a 15-hectare brew house, which would allow us to do that and pay for the stuff that we wanted. Initially, when we opened, pizzeria was our primary part of the business. Secondary was the beer. The goal wasn't to make that the biggest thing that we do. Within 6 months, the community embraced us, and all the craft beer people that were around at that time and still around just flooded in here and championed a lot of the crazy beers that we came out with. We wanted to do stuff that was different. Wasn't you wouldn't roll out with the core 4. You got your blonde, you got your IPA, you got your red ale, you got your lager. We wanted to stay off that scene. We wanted to do something that just kind of really pushed the boundaries and kind of really showed our character and our passion for the industry by just doing dumb things. And honestly, it's been very freeing because you can make a screw up on a beer and nobody else knows because they just expect a wacky beer. Lo and behold, it ends up being one of your most popular. But So with that being said, we started rolling out these weird beers, started to get the influence or the feedback from people, and the beer quickly ended up becoming the primary. And then the food side of our business took secondary. Not going to take any light off of our pizza. It has a reputation. A lot of people come in here today because we unfortunately don't do it anymore, and they miss it, long for it. Because it was also the same as like the beer, just very adventurous and kind of pushing the boundaries and doing dumb things. And so moving forward, we initially didn't want to do a lot of canning. Canning was going to be quarterly. It was more going to be like a business card, kind of get out to the market, get some, get in some retailers. People can try it, find out where we're at, get it back in, get them into the tap room where you want to be able to have them enjoying the actual full experience. And so canning started out, we started doing quarterly as planned, 2 products at a time. And then by the time we hit our second canning cycle, things took over on that side, and packaging product started coming up a big thing for us. We had at one point we had to bring a contract canner in twice a week in order to drain our tanks to get the next cycle going, which that leads us into COVID era. And with COVID, prior to COVID, we had an expansion plan already in the works, tanks on order and coming. So at February of 2020, the tanks arrived, we installed them, doubled our capacity, and then COVID hit in March, March, and then I didn't know what was going to happen in the market or in the industry. And lo and behold, all this massive support for local rose up, and people got behind and wanted to, support every local brewery that was around town. And it was very heartwarming to see that happen, and overwhelming when you got to brew constantly to try to keep up with already doubled capacity that you aren't used to. So with that being said, then with that increased volume, that demand, we ordered another set of tanks. So we went through 2 expansions in 2020 to satisfy the demand and just keep the growth project going. Our brewery is 900 square feet, is our production space. It doesn't leave a lot of room for expansion. So we ended up packing a lot of tanks in there into that square footage, and then had to find room outside of the brewery, which these tanks behind me got moved up front. Our tasting room, it was a sad time because nobody was coming in, and so it ended up being a massive warehouse. So you might as well try to capitalize revenue per square foot by put liquid in here, and that's what we did. We put these tanks in here, got to a barrel program. We warehoused all our barrels up at the mezzanine where people would typically sit and enjoy beer. They are there today, which is awesome because it creates a cool ambiance. But we had to get creative on what we were going to do within that period of time. And very grateful that we did, because now it's definitely opened up a lot of different avenues and added to our portfolio of products and experiences in the beer making world.
So this is the brewery, situated in 900 square feet. I believe at current date we would be the smallest square footage based on production volume going out the door. Around us we've got 4 6,000 liter tanks. That's these fermenters here. They were part of the initial expansion and the second expansion that came in. And then we've got a 1,500 liter fermenter here, along with 2 brights that are 3,000 liter capacity, and another fermenter kind of tucked around the corner over here. That is also a 3,000 liter fermenter. Our brew house does 1,500 liters. So we use a 2-vessel system. Obviously, because of our square footage, we just want to be able to reduce the pieces of equipment that are in here. So the first one on the far side right over here is our mash lauter tun. That's where the grain will go in, kind of mix up, and we extract all the sugar. And then we move everything over to the kettle here. We're steam fired. So it's basically a glorified pot that we boil the crap out of the wort and add all the hops and stuff in there. And then we kick it over to these guys once that process is done. And as you see, obviously you gotta keep moving things around. You'll see in our space, pallets of cans are just waiting to get shipped out. And then our canning line, which when we initially got it, the concept behind it was to keep it mobile, that we can be able to move it and put it away. That's happened maybe 4 or 5 times within its life cycle. It just sits there now. You can typically 3 to 4 times a week. So to disassemble and reassemble is a nightmare. So we just leave it there and work around that. Yeah, just try to cram as much as you can, get creative on the space that you have, and keep putting out some fun liquid.
Yeah, so some of the beers that we end up doing, like I said, they're kind of out of there, a little crazy, wacky. A lot of our portfolio is very heavy on the sour side of it. Sours weren't really on our radar when we got going. Like I said, we also didn't want to stay in the main of the 4 beers that I mentioned, like IPA, blonde, red ale, and a lager. So we tried doing sours, and so sours weren't in the market at that point in time. And we figured, you know what, like if we're gonna try something that we've never done before, we better just go all in. And so our first sour that we did, we put a vegetable in there, which is our beets. And so it was never planned to be anything beyond that first brew. It was just a complete test batch, and now it's one of our mainstays, and what we produce is our beets, and it's won multiple awards provincially, nationally, and worldly now, which is surprising to see that beer do that. Beyond that, we've got another famous beer. It's our White Wedding pastry stout. We had a patron in here at one point, a good friend now, because he frequents often, and he suggested that as we were writing recipes, we would sit at the bar and kind of scratch our heads and try to think of interesting things. And so he suggested that we would try and do a white stout versus a stout. So a white stout simulates a lot of the stout flavors, but it looks like a pale ale, lighter in color. So it creates that deception, which is I like that idea because it pushes the boundaries a little bit, creates that conversation with the consumer. Also, it kind of messes with your mind when you're drinking almost a pale ale looking beer and it tastes like a stout. So I was really intrigued on that concept. And then at that time, pastry beers were starting to come out, kind of moving through the US and then making their way up into Canada. So we're figured, okay, you know what, if we're going to try this white stout thing, let's add another element into it just to make it more complex and put a cake into it. We approached Art of Cake at that point, asked them if they would partner with us because they do amazing wedding cakes, and surprisingly they got on board and they provided us the wedding cake, which was very ornate, beautiful. And when it came time to actually throw it into the mash, it was really hard to actually see that thing go in and get destroyed with the gold icing that was around it, some flaking. It was a fun morning. Obviously, you have cake for breakfast and making beer. But and now that one again was going to be a one-off. It was going to be a seasonal that we may not ever do again. And now we've got to keep producing it. And it's interesting when you're talking to the general public and you're sharing with consumers or patrons and you're telling them, yeah, there's an entire wedding cake put into this beer, and you just see their eyes light up like, you kidding me? Like, you do that? And it gives you an opportunity to lead into the story and the people behind it and why, and it just kind of shows that creative passion, why we do this. I truly believe the heart behind craft beer needs to be that creativity. It needs to be an outlet to be able to do that. Unfortunately, when you run a business, the business side creeps into it, but we need to always kind of keep our hands back in there and have comrades in the industry like Edmonton has, where we spur each other on, we challenge each other, we do fun activities like Weird Beer Fest that we did last year, in a time when the entire season for us is a downer in January. A bunch of us breweries riled together and said, hey, let's challenge each other to make the weirdest beer and get it out to have all the other breweries champion that, and then get the consumer to go and test them all. And so we made weird, wacky beers, and they came out and celebrated that. A lot of fun. In regards to more beers that we ended up doing, obviously we do head down, the IPA side of things. We do a lot of lagers, Our Megawatt New England IPA is our hazy, juicy, actual New England IPA that we produce, and it's our highest volume. Gotta always keep that in a tank and kind of keep it flowing. It sits on the side of what a true New England is. Definitely a little bit more drier on the palate with a lot more fruit flavors. New England is kind of growing into many different veins. It's gone into a juicy section and a hazy section, which a lot of breweries do really well with supporting it and promoting those. We try to keep Megawatt as true as we possibly can, where we actually first enjoyed that kind of product. And then just keep pushing the boundaries and having different fun. Created seltzers. We've got a sparkling hop water that we were the first to bring to market here in Alberta. We have a non-alcoholic sour beer, which is the first in Western Canada packaged and produced. Italian soda, and then a couple other R&Ds, which unfortunately I can't disclose right now. But always something fun and dumb in the works. So we try to keep, with our raw ingredients, we try to keep it as local as possible. So our base malt comes out of RAR, right? It's RAR, it comes out of Alex, Alberta. So we've actually, in Alberta, we've got some of the highest quality barley that's really sought after in the world. And so we would be dumb to go out and try to source it from somebody else. We might as well bring that in, support the local farmers. We do a lot of our specialty malts will come from Red Shed and Origin. Just kind of, again, local maltsters that we want to be able to support. A lot of our beers that have won awards has been with their malt and their roasting techniques. Hops are kind of all over the place. Obviously, like hops will provide the different flavors within the regions that they're at. So you're going to be sourcing them based on the style you're looking for. The yeast, when we first started, was a lot of dry yeast. It was just kind of playing around. We didn't want to have a big capital investment into yeast. So once our recipes were developed, we got a little bit more confident in harvesting, keeping our yeast healthy, doing the proper cell counts. We moved into a bunch of liquid yeast, which we kind of have established as house strains now. Yeah. With hops locally, we've dabbled a little bit more on like a palate side. Nobody's really brought anything forth from a palletized standpoint. A lot of it's whole cone, which you need a copious amounts of it to be able to extract the flavors that you're looking for. So when you're developing the recipe, it ends up being a completely one-off because you can't really base it on there. There are a lot of people that are trying to get their hops to the market. Unfortunately, we can't really hang our hat on a lot of them. It's more just like playing within our IPA series that we've done in the past, our market series. We've dabbled with that a little bit here and there, but primarily we deal with a lot with based on the volumes of hops that we end up using. It's a contract base, so we work out agreements with brokers to be able to secure the hops that we're looking for the annual production, and then we bring them in and and use them. So a lot of the beer, obviously, like I said, from a creative standpoint, you drum up the recipe, you make this product up, you brew it, get it into this can. You can have the best beer in the can, but nobody's going to grab it off the shelf unless it looks pretty. And so that's where a lot of the imaging comes from. Tends to be within our industry, there tends to be a story around almost every beer that you do. And if there's not a story, then it's almost like removes I believe the craft element from it. There should be something tied to it that reflects who you are, who your business is, or who your people are that work for you. And so a lot of our stuff, that's what we've done. You'll see, especially on our initial labels, our Prairie Fire Rug beer. So there's two individuals that are kind of silhouettes that are on there. And so that was our head brewer at the time, Drew Sinden, and then myself watching this barn burn, right? And so it's kind of an ode to us brewing that beer and kind of being adventurous on that side. We've also got another label, our Pond Surfer California Comet. The girl that is on there is a good friend, and she was a competitor for Team Canada for paddleboarding. And so we wanted to kind of give her some love and put her onto a label. So she got put onto Pond Surfer. We had an artist that worked with us when we first got going, We didn't know that she was a professional artist. Once we found out, she got commissioned to do a lot of these projects, and we would sit down and just kind of share why we wanted to have this beer look this certain way. And so you'll see chainsaws for hands, and so it's a guy sitting in a chair with two chainsaws, and that's actually a reflection of one of our employees at that time that was just kind of, expressing how if he was a comic book character, this is what he would be. And so that inspired us on the label and why we would do that. Has a very unique story. So when we first got going, I think we were about 3-4 months into operation, not ever having any hospitality background in the food industry at all. And we had a bunch of food bloggers and reviewers come into our door unannounced. And with our business and not having that hospitality background, we didn't know we had to roll out the red carpet and kind of embrace them or even invite them. It was kind of not really our thing. We didn't know. And so they already came in with this impression that they were going to put us through the ringer. And so when they sat down, we brought out a bunch of food. Our pizza honestly did shit the bed. It performed the best for them and didn't look the best. But then they ripped apart our beer. And at that point, we were already starting to develop a name within the Edmonton region, having adventurous beer, having higher quality beer, doing different things. We had our Prairie Fire Rauk beer, which wasn't done up here, but it was more traditional Bamberg, Germany style smoke beer. And that was one of the ones that they identified as being one-dimensional, which was very interesting. And then just kind of labeled a bunch of our beers as being, kind of flat, plain, one-dimensional. So our 2D label was an ode to that. We were kind of, okay, well, we better pull up our socks and do something a little bit different. We better put out something that's two-dimensional. And so that we took our sour beer, and then we took a New England IPA and we smashed them together. And that's sort of where 2D came from. Like I said, every label tends to have a story behind it. If you can get out and sit at the brewery, if you can get in front of the brewers or even the owners, a lot of times they'll tell you a fun story behind why they chose that label, why they made that beer. And you'll truly see the passion behind why they did that and where their heart comes from. So the name Town Square, honestly, it was birthed out of a place where we wanted to have people come together. We knew within the business plan and in conversations with the shareholder team that we wanted to create a place that was fun, that was inviting, and inviting for everybody, a safe place that be able to come. It didn't cater to some sort of demographic. It wasn't going to be a beer snob. It wasn't going to be a wine snob, coming in to pick apart a product. But it was a place where everybody within that region would be able to come and just be able to say, hey, I feel super comfortable and want to be there. And so in picking the name, Town Square seemed fitting, because in the old world, Town Square was a place where all the markets would end up being. That's where people would come together to challenge each other. They would, put ideas forward. They would meet up with friends and family in these town square centers. And then from there, they would basically impart different parts of the culture within themselves. And then they'd go back into their areas of influence. And so we wanted to be that place, especially on the south side of Edmonton, where people within our communities could come together, hang out, bump shoulders together, enjoying a common product like craft beer or pizza at that time. and get to know each other and take on kind of a new reflection of what the culture could look like and move forward. So cringy moments, looking back, I wish I would have had more experience in the hospitality side. There was a lot of mistakes that we did along the way, which helped us get to where we are today. Definitely very humble beginnings, how to approach the market, how to, receive public into a space. Obviously, we want to try to create a home environment where their friends and family treat them like that. But definitely a lot of stumbling blocks along the way on trying to convey that and express that. Other cringy moments that within the period of time of being around, when you create an R&D product that's not been done before and you're the first to kind of go to the market, you're also the one that kind of goes through the ringer first. And so our seltzer, our Brad Water, we produced it and I had a hard time actually allowing it to get to where it needed to ferment all the way down. And we thought we were down all the way. And so we packaged this product, we got it out to the market, got some decent feedback, but then cans started exploding. And so when you're the first to the market of a seltzer, and this was before White Claw came into Canada, you end up having to do a lot of PR and a lot of customer relations and apologize and learn that. You think you would learn from that lesson, but then we decided, hey, we're going to do overly fruited beers because that's a trend that's happening in the States. We might as well try and do that too. So we came up with our smoothie line. And so what happens when you put fruit into a can that has yeast tracings, it's going to ferment and it's going to explode. And there's going to be raspberries and blueberries all over people's houses if they don't keep it properly stored. So we had to learn from that entire process and obviously recall a bunch of product and then relabel it, let people know that you got to keep it cold and drink it fresh. Don't leave it for an entire year and expect that fruit to be okay. But yeah, those would be some major cringy moments. Obviously, in operation, when you're walking up the stairs, when you first open up, you've got a grand opening and you're carrying a tray of beer that you've never served before. Lo and behold, when you're climbing stairs and trying to balance beer, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to trip and fall, and you're going to have liquid flying all over the place and running down the walls. But yeah, those are gems that are there, and opportunities to learn and grow and laugh at each other, have some fun. Yeah, so our location, so we're situated on the far south of Edmonton. I actually heard a lot of people say it this way, like you're pretty much in Calgary, right? Like even when you go to beer fests, it's like, oh, you're a new brewery in Edmonton? It's like, oh no, we've actually been around since 2017. Oh, like, are you from Calgary? No, we're not from Calgary. We're actually in Edmonton, all right? Just on the other side of the Henday. But yeah, like I would say our location kind of gives us an opportunity to be an island to ourselves. Obviously we are surrounded by a bunch of different communities. The hard part with that is trying to be able to reach out and make those touch points with a lot of individuals. And then the future patrons that we want to be able to bring in here and experience what we're doing. A good chunk of them work downtown or work in more of the central area. And when they're coming to the south side, it's the bedroom community. They're coming here to kind of hunker in at home, hang out in their backyards. So you've got to really emphasize that, we don't get a lot of foot traffic here. We want to try to pull them in, experience the product, and allow them to kind of take it forward and start sharing that with other people. The blessings of areas like Happy Beer Street is you feed off of each other from all the other breweries, right? You allow that foot traffic to kind of go there. It's almost like a little bit of an instant success if you open up in there, because then you've got that volume. You've got those people that are already that demographic that has that hunger, that has that thirst, that's looking for that experience. So then they're going to hop around and look at that. And they've done well for that area of Happy Beer Street. Like even in Calgary, there are different barley belts that they've created there. Those are pockets where the community comes together and they share and they work, which goes back to supporting each other. We're not competitors. We're we collaborate, we work together and a lot of us end up being a lot of friends and almost family in the industry because we have that synergy, and you start seeing that, especially in those pockets, like Happy Beer Street, end up being friends, and they all support each other. They promote each other, which is amazing. And I would say, like, even just Edmonton in general, the breweries try to do that as a whole. Just try to get. It's a little bit harder to commute on a bicycle to all the different breweries, especially on the far south side or all the way to the north side. But, there are adventurous people that do that. Right? So we've had, I would say, we've labeled them. I've had 2 head brewers with labels. So Drew Sinden that came in. He came in and worked with me, obviously, to develop recipes. We worked as a partnership, being collaborative, supporting each other. It was an opportunity for him. He came from Victoria, where he was working for a major brewery out there. Wanted to kind of go to that next level, become a brewer, a head brewer. And so when he came on with us, I wanted to give him a blank canvas to just kind of paint and have some fun. And so between, allowing him to do adventurous recipe development, we would bounce ideas back and forth and scribe it up and brew it. At that time, we didn't have any assistant brewers. I was the one that was back there getting dirty and hanging out and then jumping in for the other brewers. And then after Drew had left and went back to the island, where his heart is, then we had Nick come on with us. And so Nick was also another individual that just wanted to be creative and just passionately reflect who he is through his product. And so one of the highlight ones that he's done is our IO, New England Pale Ale, and he actually had a friend that designed a shirt that showed a music plug board, I think is what it's called. So he does a lot of electronic music and producing and editing of music. So he wanted to have that as a reflection of who he was. And so he joined our team. He was with us for quite a few years. And then he had the opportunity to move over to the Monolith to work on barrels, which every brewer, like I would imagine, longs to have that adventurous project to be able, put product into a barrel and allow it to grow over 3-4 years and to see it flourish. So he had that opportunity year and a half ago when he went over with that group, and he's been just rocking it ever since. And then from there, right now, I would say I'd probably be more of the head brewer. We kind of just bounce off each other, all of us, and kind of scribing up recipes. The title of a head brewer or brewmaster is kind of thrown around there in the industry a lot. I know brewmaster is something that you got to spend a lot of hours, a lot of time. You got to build that reputation behind. A head brewer is almost an assigned person that kind of just oversees the production area. So give a title of a brewmaster is you got to be very bold and confident in that individual to be able to give that title and honor. So in regards to pricing and what our other partners in the area are doing, I would say Edmonton is in a very unique position. We have almost like, I would say, a guild of owners that get together. We try to do it almost once a month, and we cry on each other's shoulders a lot. We share our wins, our losses, and we also do group buys. So we all want to take over we want to own our territory. We also want to grow in the market. Our biggest, I would say, competitor that we're trying to inch out would be, obviously the macro group. Your Budweiser, your Coolers, all those bigger boys. We want to be able to take more of that market back. And the way that we see it is, if we're trying to do it by ourselves, that our industry is only going to grow very small and very slow. Whereas if we come together collectively, we can move forward with more power, more emphasis, and get down to those price points where we can actually compete against a lot of these bigger producers. Alberta is one of those unique markets where it's had open borders for craft beer to flow into, alcohol period to flow in here. And I know where I could reflect back to 2016, 2017, we would have product that was coming in here that at that time I thought was amazing. It would come from BC, from well-established, amazing breweries that pump out some good stuff, and not just nailing BC to the cross, but like the US and some of the East Coast breweries. But there'd be product that would come in here the consumers in Alberta were, adjusted to what craft beer at that time would taste like. Once I got into the industry and once others started getting into the industry, we started realizing, hey, this is spoiled product. This is actually oxidized. It's been sitting around for a long time. So we'd be a dumping ground. So Alberta has a lot of product that comes in here. So the consumers have a lot of options. And so I believe that the brewers, not only in the Edmonton region, but Alberta entirely, we have to fight a little extra hard in order to kind of get that shelf space, to get that recognition into those major retailers so the consumers can end up buying it. And part of that, like I said, that's where that guild comes in, is we want to work together, support each other, if we can reduce our costs, it allows us to have that freedom and share ideas. Obviously, there's tricks of the trade that we do differently than others, and you respect everybody else in what they do, and so you don't really try too hard, but it ends up being a pretty open forum where you share those ideas and you ask for help or ask for support. If we run short on something, you got people on speed dial, hit them up and ask for if they got it, and then we just run over and grab it, or they run it over, and then vice versa. We just kind of share and support each other, which is what I understand is very unique in our industry. And when we share that with other people from different sections within Canada, they can't believe that we work together like that. So in regards to startup costs and how things got going, so obviously having three families together, you bring as much equity as you possibly can to the table. At that time when we were spearheading getting this business going in 2016, ATB was a big supporter of trying to push the craft beer market. The NDP government was also in and opened up a lot of doors and promoted craft beer. So to be able to get into a lot of financing support, it seemed like that path was already opened up for us, and we were able to do that. Now, as we go forward and try to do expansions, obviously, like the economic climate that we're in, the banks are a little bit more hesitant to lend. And when they want to lend at a higher expense than obviously what we started at. From a business standpoint, we actually have a little bit better footing of equity. We actually have a reputation that we're able to bring forth within the entire planning. Costing of equipment did not go down. It actually went up. I would almost say it almost doubled since when we got going. So cost of startup is a lot more for unfortunately, these guys that are coming in. There is more equipment that's been used and is cycling through from other breweries that have, either expanded or unfortunately shut down. So there's definitely a lot of options to get into the industry to grow. We are currently going through the process of evaluating expansions like we did back in 2020, and just kind of reevaluating, what our options are out there. And surprisingly, there is still a lot of options considering the economic climate. Yeah, so like I said, the blessing in disguise with COVID, expanding our operation and what we were looking at doing and kind of testing new elements, kind of brought our entire barrels in here. So a lot of what you see are bourbon whiskey barrels, which will have our Liquid Lullaby or Imperial Stout in there, along with any kind of richer flavors. And then we've also got French oak barrels that had red wine in it. They've been spiked with Brettanomyces, which creates an interesting complex. And then we do fun blends. We've done saisons in there. We've done Berliner Weisses in there. And just kind of allow that culture to create different elements. And then we've also got tequila barrels on site here as well, which we have our Mexican Cerveza Chiquita, which won bronze 2 years ago at Canadian Brewing Awards, which was at the point of that, which was our very first barrels that we ended up doing. So it was a huge honor, and it was kind of a nice, ode to the brewers of what they were doing, that they did an amazing job, and we're redoing that again, kind of keeping that Chiquita alive in some of those. And the barrels have kind of been, for me, it has turned into a passion project, because you brew something and you don't see what it's going to be like for years. So sort of like with the monolith, and yeah, I can definitely relate to where their heart comes from. You design this recipe, and you put it in these vessels, and you just let them sit, and you just hope and pray that they're going to turn out great, and then mix and blend. And so this was our first taste of what that looks like, and definitely look forward to barrel season. It is a fun time to start sampling, start doing some blending, and then get it out to the public and get that feedback and see what the wood has done, and what we were able to get from other flavors of the spirits that were in there, and obviously what the base beer did. It's always pretty fun and exciting to do. So when you're up here, it definitely creates a fun ambiance and a cozy ambiance with the oak barrels going around you.
Kevin Danner with the Growlery Beer Company. We started in June of 2019, so about 8 months prior to COVID. We were homebrewers, my partner and I, Jeff, and crazy about craft beer. And we realized that Edmonton was really far behind other major cities in North America as far as breweries were concerned. So we saw an opportunity to maybe level up our hobby to our careers, and just decided to go for it. And so we started planning the brewery in 2018. I did a brewery startup course down in San Diego and got a really good behind the scenes look at how San Diego kind of built up, and kind of the craft beer craze that was happening in San Diego at the time. And I just wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to bring that up to Edmonton. I wanted people to experience that. So we tried to really focus on like the West Coast styles here, the stuff that a lot of the breweries down there were doing, not wanting to reinvent the wheel. So we tried to really build this place out in a way that we thought would be very welcoming for people. Try to keep it as industrial as we could. I found that was something that people really liked, is to actually have the feel of sitting inside the brewery rather than just being on the outside of it. So that's kind of what we focused on with the Growlery Beer Company. We have 14 taps. We try to really change things up, try and do some classic styles, try to do some of the newer stuff, kind of keep our ear out to what's happening in the industry as far as new ingredients and things like that we can try, new hop varieties that people are trying to just, like I said, just to try to increase the variety of beer that we're providing to people. So prior to this, I was a real estate banker, worked here locally in Edmonton, and just got to the point where my wife was saying to me, you have to do something that you love in life. You can't always be miserable. That's kind of where the name the Growlery came from. The definition of a growlery is a place of refuge for the ill-humored and out of sorts. And that's obviously where I felt, I was. So we really, when we found the name, it was just like, it called out to us, screamed to us that this is what we should call our brewery, because a brewery to me was always a place, if I went there, I wasn't really thinking about a lot of the stresses in life. I was kind of just, focused on the beer, focused on the conversation, and found that, when I'm sitting in a brewery, I just, I'm calm, I'm relaxed. And that's another thing that I really wanted to bring to the Growlery, was just for people to have a sense of, community and, conversation. And beer has always been like the great common denominator. You'll hear that a lot. It's kind of cliche, but it's true. You could have, a super rich person next to somebody who's not so rich, and they could find commonality with talking about beer. So that's another thing that really, is super appealing to us about having a brewery. And we found that once we opened, we had other breweries in Edmonton stopping in and just checking on our progress, seeing if we needed help with anything. Like it really is a super tight community here in Edmonton. And recently we've really tried to focus on trying to just tighten that community. We've created, the Hot Pocket here in Edmonton, which was a grouping of 7 breweries. But the owners kind of get together, every month or so and kind of just discuss what's happening in the market. Try to find ways that we can maybe group buy and try to save some money that way. But really just find a way for us to tighten up as a community. And I think it really resonates with our customers when they see, other breweries talking to other breweries and other breweries helping other breweries. So it's important to us that we kind of just help kind of nurture that and make sure that, all of us are doing well. We're very small percentage of the overall beer marketplace. So we're all kind of sharing in a small percentage. So the goal is to try to increase that percentage. So when we first started planning the brewery, we had a pretty good idea of what we wanted for equipment and how we wanted the place to look. Obviously things change over time. We strayed from the plan a little bit. But the idea always was to, have something that, people could come into, realize that what they're drinking is actually produced here in Edmonton. And here in Blatchford, it took us a while to get going. We ran into problems with obviously construction and permits and things like that. We'd never done any of this before, so figuring out how to get our tanks from the rail yard and get them in here and get them leveled properly and get everything kind of set up so that the mechanical companies and the electrical guys can come in and do their thing. That was all a pretty steep learning curve for us, but once we started brewing our own beer, it really did make all of it worthwhile. And again, we really wanted to be a part of this community. So when we first opened, there's nothing in front of us out in Blatchford. We were, we kind of had it all open and had that dream of, what's going to be being created out front of us. And, as the community built up, we were, kind of hoping that people would come in and, we'd always kind of just be that mainstay, community anchor point for people to come in and have beer. So, as Blatchford builds up, we can, kind of see more of that. And the nice thing is as Blatchford builds out, we also get busier. So there's always a plus to that too. So one of the challenges that we met when we first opened was probably a similar one to a lot of breweries when you're building out and you kind of start seeing your bank account dwindle, was that we went with a cheaper equipment option for our tanks. And we were actually the first one that this equipment provider was creating here in North America. So we knew that there was probably going to be a few hiccups, but there was actually quite a few. And, realizing it now when we talk to other breweries, we really try to, emphasize how important it is to, spend the money on the things that are actually going to make you money, like the equipment, and make sure that the equipment is high quality. And we had issues with our mash tun, which is the very first start of the process, and it was just a simple thing, a simple checkbox that we didn't do. That we didn't get steam jackets on our tanks, on our mash tun. So that only allows us to do one style of brewing, which is a single infusion mash. So, after the fact, we realized that had we just checked that checkbox, we would have been able to do a whole bunch of different styles of beer. But I mean, it's one of those things that you miss because you have so much going on at the time, and you don't really realize until the mechanical guys are in here looking to do the hookups for the gas. So just other things too, as far as things that we spent money on in the very beginning that we thought we needed, and realize that once you're actually up and running for 4 years, that a lot of that stuff, it's really just throwing money away. But again, you don't learn these things unless you actually go through them. So, when we meet with new breweries, especially with the this brewers owner group that we have now, we really try to just talk about things like that and talk about best practices and just things that we can do better. We never really had that when we first opened. So again, it's learning a lot of lessons as you go. When we first opened, we really wanted to make sure that the quality of our beer was, where it should be for a new brewery. We were all right homebrewers, Jeff and I, but knew that if we were going to start out, especially in Edmonton, where it wasn't a huge bustling beer scene at the time, we needed to come out with really good beer that, is going to ensure that people come back. So we hired a professional brewer from Quebec, and he came out here. He made good beer, but the one thing that both of us, Jeff and I, never had also was the HR side of things. And brewers are a little bit of a different beast, and we learned a lot with our first brewer. We've kind of run the gamut on highly experienced to not very experienced, but really had the drive to make good beer. That's kind of where we're at now. Our current brewer didn't have any professional brewing experience, but just had the desire to make good beer and really understands the process. And we kind of let him go, and he just, from day one, just started making really good beer. So we give him, a lot of rope. A lot of times probably a little bit too much rope when it comes down to figuring out what kind of beers we make next. But we have a small pilot system that, if there's a little bit of a lull, he can always play on that, do some really interesting things. So again, it's important for us to make sure, and I think important for most breweries, like when you first open, to make sure that your quality of beer is right up there especially with what's in the marketplace at the time. When we decide on beers, a lot of it has to do with the seasonality. Obviously we're going to brew the darker ones in the winter time, and the fruitier, lighter ones in the summertime. But we're always looking to see what's new and kind of what's coming out. Not so much on our own marketplace, but things that other brewers are doing, maybe down in Portland or San Diego or the East Coast, and just trying to watch and see. Listening to podcasts and things like that, and trying new beers. Like it's tough when you own a brewery to actually go to the liquor store and buy other people's beer, but that's probably the best way for us to really get a sense of flavors and what other people are doing. Not that we want to copy that, but we just want to see, the testing quality and just get a sense of where we can push the envelope on flavors. We've got a very small pilot system that we can mess around with, different ingredients and things. It only will do, about 50 liters of beer. So for us to brew a pilot batch, it takes us as long to brew that as it does to actually brew on the big system. But at least with the smaller system, we're able to, if things don't work out the way we want, it's not so terrible for us to dump it. But it does give us a really great advantage as far as coming up with, really interesting things. When we have cask events, we always do, the cask beers up on that pilot system. And then that's kind of just evolved into, okay, if we come up with a crazy idea, let's start it out of the pilot system and then, figure out how to ramp it up onto our big system. It's all mathematical calculations and things like that, which our brewer is very good at. So we had primarily wanted to focus this spot here on just really a tap room feel. We didn't really have any interest in canning the product and getting it out in the province. We were kind of hoping that by, year 3 or 4, we could just try to put something out into the market and see how it did. But obviously when COVID happened, we had to get beer out of the tanks. And like every pretty much other brewery in North America and the world, it was a race to get beer out of tanks. So we were able to find a canning machine here locally. We were bidding against a couple other breweries for it and eventually went out on the canning machine, and that really changed our business. We now became a production brewery. We had to learn how to not only, put that beer into a package, but to also get it out into the market, into liquor stores and bars and restaurants. And not only that, but it was, once you get the beer out there, you don't just leave it. You have to help the liquor store sell it. You have to make sure that things aren't getting stale dated. So it's a whole other beast that we had to learn very quickly. We're 2 years into canning our product now. I think we're at a point where we're pretty happy with how our cans look. We feel that they stand out on the shelf. So, that way I think it's really helped us just get our name out there. We're pretty much province wide now, which again, we never expected when we first opened this brewery that our product would be shotgunned all across the province. We've had beer up in the Northwest Territories, some in Saskatchewan. So that's been a real cool, positive from COVID, was that it really forced us to learn that side of the business fairly quickly. And we still have plans to hopefully move into Blatchford with a larger brewery, but I think we've kind of figured out the production side, and now we can start looking again back at the tap room side and really focus on our customers face to face. So our previous cans, they were all done by a local artist, but we kind of shied away from that now, and I'm kind of doing all the labels up for our cans and just trying to fine tune them to what's being expected as far as federal regulations for ingredients and things like that. So just trying to fine tune them and get them all together. But all the new labels that we're doing up now are all done by me. Yeah, no, we're still not profitable. Usually they say about 3 to 5 years. We're kind of hit that 5-year mark, but again, nobody expected that we'd hit a worldwide pandemic. And honestly, I think that really has changed a lot of the way we do things. And during COVID, we were thinking, okay, well, when this is all over, we're going to get back to normal. And I don't think there's anybody out there who would tell you that we're back to normal yet or anywhere near that. So again, we're kind of just looking forward to the future and just, really focusing on the taproom experience. We always push local. We always support local. All of our snacks that we buy are all purchased locally here in Edmonton. So we really try to hyper focus on that. And I think that's what's going to kind of help us going forward is, just making sure that Edmontonians know that the beer that we make is all 100% produced here in our facility here in Edmonton. When we were scouting locations, out of all the places that we found, this was the only one that was still zoned industrial, that was right across the street from, a major residential development. So we saw the potential of that, and we decided to go with what might be as opposed to what was already existing. I think Blatchford still has a lot of potential. The plan is that there will be 30,000 people living here eventually. So obviously, who wouldn't want to be outside of a development like that? There's still lots of development to go in the area out front. So I think we're well positioned for what's going to happen in the future for Blatchford. We're also looking at a possible second location downtown. And again, I think my partner Jeff and I we're kind of just stooges for potential. And with people starting to slowly come back to work, I think there's a lot of potential to be back downtown in Edmonton. Central Edmonton again for people. But yeah, I think there's just tons of potential for us to have another tap room where we can, have a similar thing of what we have here, but just something smaller where we can kind of play around with more flavors. And with our focus on local, we try to keep that going with all of our ingredients, not only with the products up here in the front in the tap room, but also in the back. We get a lot of our base malt now from Maltster out in Westlock. And again, that's very important for us. I think a lot of people, in Edmonton and Calgary and even Alberta don't realize that some of the best barley in the world comes from Alberta. And, when they drink things like our 1929 Kolsch, that beer is made 100% with, barley that's grown, minutes from their front door. So again, I think that's important to let people understand is that, we have a product here in Alberta that all Albertans should be really proud of, because there's breweries all across North America that are clamoring to get their hands on Alberta barley. So one thing we like to do is to have a couple different options on our menu board. Recently, AGLC kind of changed some rules to allow us to put things like a cider or, a gimlet, which is kind of like a margarita type cocktail that we did with Fort Distilling. And what we did there is we, gave them a bunch of beer that wasn't sellable, and they distilled it and made that product. We've done it with Lone Pine and a couple other companies, but prior to the AGLC changing the rule, we could only put our own beer on our menu just based on how our license was. We don't have a kitchen, so it's all local snacks. But because of that, we have dogs inside, and we're very dog friendly. A lot of places aren't. We allow people to come in and order whatever food they want as well. So I think that's a little bit novel to people too, is to be able to come into, what they would see as a pub and be able to order their own food from, local food places like Woodshed or Northern Chicken. So anyway, going back to like the collaborations, that's, it's really allowed us to, reach out to, when people come in as a group of 4 and 3 of them drink beer and one of them isn't a beer drinker, at least we have an option for people to drink something and, be able to hang out with their friends. We also have some non-alcoholic options that we buy from, local breweries like SYC. So our demographic is fairly diverse. It really is broad from, young people to old people. We have, bridge players that come in here to discuss strategy, and then, we've got, I guess what people would want to call hipsters coming around and just wanting to try, all the new different beers. So when we do have people coming in, when they're new to craft beer, you can spot them pretty quickly because they'll come in, they'll kind of look at the board like a deer in headlights. And, we always just try to make sure that they feel comfortable. We are a tasting room, so, we'll always start suggesting, things that they might want to try, find out, what they typically drink. And, we'll try to find something that's close to that, but also try to encourage them to try something new. Beer in itself is so diverse that people don't even realize that, our sour beer is almost made exactly the same as our lagers. It's just different yeasts and time and things like that. So, the education part of it is another big thing for us, as far as getting people to just try craft beer and to let them know why craft beer is better. Everything's unpasteurized. We don't have a ton of preservatives in our beer.